I'm Debbie Godfrey. Welcome to the Positive Parenting Pep Talks podcast. For this week, I'm going to be providing you with the Dial a Discipline audio. This is a product I created about a decade and a half ago, quite a while. It was for parents in my classes to have a supplement to the systematic approach to parenting and discipline that I use. It's a handheld wheel that you can hang on your refrigerator or put in your purse, and it helps you when you're in misbehavior situations with being able to brainstorm in the moment ideas for what to do instead. So when I sell this wheel, there's an audio that goes along with it, which explains exactly how to use it. So that's what I'm giving you for this next week. I'll put a link in the comments to the actual dial if you'd like to purchase it. You don't have to. All of this information that's provided via audio will give you what you need to be able to redirect your children's behavior. Thanks for stopping by.
So before I get into teaching you about each of the four goals, I'd like to just make a few general points about identifying the goals and what you just heard with Julia and I. And first thing is that oftentimes the children will start off in the goal of undue attention. So they'll just be picking and bugging and, mom, dad, and just kind of irritating and annoying. They'll be trying to get in our face when we're talking to our spouse. They'll be fine a minute ago and now the phone rings and they'll start going crazy in the background. All of these are ways that children do the goal of undue attention. So when you get into situations where you're feeling annoyed and irritated, then you know that your child's goal is undue attention. And what will happen is if we don't know how to redirect the goal of undue attention, that will escalate. So they'll be saying, Mom, and we'll be saying, not now, honey, I'm busy. But Mom, not now, honey, I've got stuff to do. Mom, I need my shoes. Honey, you better stop it right now. No. And now it's just become a power struggle. So what started off as the goal of undue attention, because we don't know how to correct it, it'll kick over into the goal of power. So now we're in a power struggle with our child. You'd better stop that right now or else you're going to be in trouble. I don't want to. You'd better knock it off. I need to do this and you'd better stop it right now. No. And then we're in this outright no. Do it. No. Do it. This power struggle will escalate to the point where we'll say something like, you'd better knock it off or else. And then the child will say, I hate you. You're so mean to me. So now this power struggle, this hurt back, because we don't know how to correct it, it'll actually kick over into the goal of revenge. So now we're in a hurt back phase of, you're so mean to me. I don't like you. You're a bad mommy. And ultimately be, an I hate you with many kids. And so this will escalate. The goal of revenge will escalate to be where you'd better knock it off or you're going to get grounded. You're so mean to me. If you don't stop it right now, you're going to be grounded for 6 months, young lady. I hate you. And then we say, okay, that's it. Just wait till your father gets home or you get to your room and you're grounded. And at that point, the child gives up. I can't do anything right. I'm helpless. And then the goal of revenge, if we don't know how to correct it, will kick over into the goal of adequacy where your child is giving up and saying that they can't do it. So uncorrected, that's how the goals will play out when your child is young. Another point I'd like to make is that when they're very young, say if you have kids between the ages of 2.5 and 5 or 6, they will be all over this chart and you will barely have time to identify the goal that they're in before they're already in another goal. And the most important thing about disciplining your children is that each corrective measure for each of these goals, so the discipline that you use for the goal of attention is very different from the discipline that you use for the goal of power, is very different from the discipline that you use for the goal of revenge. And it's very different from the discipline that you use for the goal of inadequacy. So the redirections, the corrective measures, the discipline for each of these four goals is different for each goal, and they are not interchangeable. So that's one thing to keep in mind, that it's really key to identify these mistaken goals first. Otherwise, what will happen is if you misidentify one of the goals, when your child's misbehaving, let's say you think it's the goal of power, when in fact it's the goal of undue attention. And I think we saw this really clearly in that example with Julia. The very first time when she asked me to pick up my backpack, and we were already the parent was in the goal of, well, not the parent was in the goal of power, but she was instigating the goal of power with me. Because even though I was being cute and silly and distracting and annoying, she was overbearing and, telling me to pick up my backpack in a way that would have kicked that over into a power struggle right away. And it may have caused some confusion in identifying this goal. So, what I wanted you to know is that often a child in the goal of undue attention, you'll be feeling irritated and annoyed because they're going to be distracting you and silly and manipulative and just trying to get in your face. Their mistaken belief is, I'm only loved if I keep you busy with me, if you're serving me. So one of the things to remember, again, is that identifying the 4 goals is one of the most important things. The other thing to remember is that your child can do the same misbehavior and be in a different goal. So for example, let's say you ask your child to clean up their room. Well, one day you can say, clean up your room. And they'll say, yeah, I'm busy. I'll do it in a little bit. They're in the goal of undue attention. Another, say, even 15 minutes later, you could say, clean up your room. No. Now they're in the goal of power. 15 minutes later, you say, clean up your room. I hate you. Goal of revenge. 15 minutes later, you say, clean up your room. I can't. I'm too tired. The goal of inadequacy. So you see, it's really important each time that you get into a situation where your children are misbehaving, every time you want to make sure to recheck, reevaluate, check in with your feelings, look at the dial of discipline under the I feel window in the first window of the dial of discipline, and figure out which goal is your child in. So this is going to be key to going through the rest of the dial of discipline, is being able to correctly identify your child's goal in the situation. And one of the other things that I like to point out is that this takes a lot of practice. It also takes a huge assumption, which is that you're in touch with your feelings. If you know that you're a person that is not that in touch with your feelings, one of the best ways you can get better at using this system is to start noticing your feelings. So just throughout the day, when you're driving, notice if somebody cuts you off. Notice, oh wow, that makes me feel really angry. Notice when somebody is really nice to you. Oh, that makes me feel really happy. That's really all it takes for you to get skilled at noticing your feelings, and you'll be able to use this chart better. Because one of the things that happens with our own children when they start pushing our buttons is that we lose sight of our feelings when we're getting into these situations, because we get so tired, we get so burnt out, we get so used to the same misbehaviors that we'll actually shut down our own feelings. And this is critical. Our feelings are critical to identifying our child's behavior, because in the past, what we did a lot of was try to psychoanalyze our kids. So why are you doing that? What's wrong with you? We're trying to figure out what's wrong with them. And the problem is they're crazy. I mean, the way kids misbehave, it doesn't make any sense. Even psychologists probably have a hard time. And forget it for us parents. We're not trained in psychology. So it doesn't get us anywhere when we try to ask why, because they don't know why either. So it's not going to help us correct their misbehavior when we get into the whys and trying to psychoanalyze them. However, we always have access to our feelings, and you'll find that your feelings will show up in a consistent manner when your child is misbehaving in each of these 4 goals. So with this system, if you practice it, and especially practice what I call diagnosing or identifying the 4 goals, you'll get really, really good at this. And this will make it a lot better, because when you use the discipline associated with each of the 4 goals in the appropriate situation. So when your child's in the goal of undue attention and you correct their misbehavior with the ideas for redirecting the goal of undue attention, you're going to get success probably 85 to 95% of the time. So you'll see an instant result. You'll see their behavior be corrected, and you'll also see their self-esteem be built, which is one of the great things about positive parenting. And so with practice, that'll get much more easy. You'll start doing a much better job. Now, in those situations where you identify the mistaken goal, and you use the corrective measure and it doesn't work, my experience has been that those are times that I misidentified the goal. So that means that the redirection that I'm applying is not the most appropriate discipline to use. And in fact, in many situations, it's the opposite of what I want to do. So when I discipline my kids and it doesn't work, and I've been using this system, instead of saying, oh, that's stupid parenting stuff, it doesn't work, what I do is I go back and reevaluate the situation and look at the chart again. And usually I'll discover that I misidentified the goal. And no, that was probably the goal of undue attention. It really wasn't power. And that may be why my discipline didn't work. So just keep those things in mind, that when your kids are very young, they're going to be all over this chart. You'll barely have time to identify the goals, let alone correct them before they're already in another goal. And although, just to make a point, they are only in one goal at a time. And as your children get older, they'll pick one or two goals of choice. So they will probably, by the time they're between 6 and 8, they'll start doing one or two of these goals predominantly. So you'll have a lot more time to plan and to make decisions about how you want to respond in those situations. So next I'm going to explain to you why kids misbehave and go through the different goals, like why are they misbehaving now in this situation, and work through each of the 4 mistaken goals.
Thank you for listening to today's Positive Parenting Pep Talks podcast. If you're into season 2 and you're listening to all these great questions that the parents have and answers and ideas for what to do in all these different situations with your kids, please help us out. Like, share, subscribe, and especially leave us a positive review. All of that helps the podcast grow, and I really appreciate it. Thanks again for being here, and happy parenting.